because we want to make sure that we are spreading the knowledge, the wisdom to all the Black community and just the community in general. So please just make sure you are sharing the video here on either Instagram. We are on YouTube Live, so you can also go to YouTube Live and watch us there. My name is Dr. Sherelle Hobson. I'm your student athlete resilience coach, and I'm also your athletic program enthusiast. I'm very passionate about what I do, especially when it comes to athletics, education, and the Black community. I created a professional development for for coaches to help them to increase their matriculation on their within their high school athletics program. Because as you know, it's not just about getting the kids there and seeing how many trophies we can win and how many games we can win, but making sure that we set our kids up for life. And so that's what I do. I coach coaches to make sure that they create a program that is productive for our youth. I'm also an international author and speaker. I have a book called Seams of Gold, Discovering Beauty and Brokenness, as well as Unleashing Your Full Potential. And with both of those books, I really help us to discover and acknowledge the space that we're in. And so basically, I give us tools, because a lot of us, we are naturally resilient. So we're always moving around and we're very productive, but it doesn't mean that we've spent enough time with ourselves to really know where we are in our own space. But the thing that I find the most of my time goes to it, and my passion, of course, is it being productive in the Black community. So this is just a small part of the Black podcast of the big picture. We do have an organization called HSBA, where we have a mentorship and leadership program where we implement to different high schools, colleges, to help create an environment for success for our young Black males in school. So please make sure you are tuning in on the Black podcast as well as HBSA. And see what other projects that we have going on.
Yes. So she is the mastermind. She is the extraordinaire behind everything that we do. I just kind of tag along and try to do what I do. But my name is Brian Street, founder, CEO of Your Legacy Begins Now, where I really help individuals, specifically in that transitional age, 17 to 21, to realize, you know what? It don't matter where you came from. It don't matter what your last name is. It doesn't matter what happened before you and your family's lineage. You can start surrounding yourself with the right people today, putting the right things into your mind to live your life with purpose, because your legacy begins now. There's so much work that I do, and I can go deeply into it, but I really want to tie in what we're doing today with what I bring to you all. We bring these guests every single week to show you, you know what? I went through this as a youth, but look at me now. Look at where I am now. To let the world know, not only the Black community know, but let the world know, yes, we may have come from whatever area over here, but we have an eclectic being within us, and there's a spectrum of who and what we can be. So the gentleman that we have before us today, whenever we're thinking about, okay, what do we want to title this episode? And when you look at the fella in certain scenes, you would assume, okay, this is a professional bodybuilder. This is maybe he does modeling. Looks can be deceiving. So allow it to be what it is, but listen to the journey, listen to the individual, learn who that individual is, and understand that we, specifically in the Black community, can come from wherever and get to wherever we desire to get to. Without further ado, we welcome Emeka Blade. How's it going?
Hey, y'all. How's it going?
Good. We got the doc in the building. How you doing? Thank you for being a part of the Black podcast.
Hey, my pleasure. I was excited when you guys offered for me to come on to the show. I'm always into, trying to inspire the youth. So I'm glad to have this opportunity.
Well, thank you again. So we're going to make sure we dive right in so that everyone can get to know you. We want to spend all the time getting to know all your business. So
okay. Well, in that case,
you don't have to know all of it. But we do want to start off with just, from the very beginning, where you're from. Let us know the dynamics of your family and just share, that journey with us. Take us all the way back to the beginning.
Well, in the beginning. All right. So I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. to Nigerian parents. My parents are both Nigerian. They're born there. My mom's a nurse. My father's a physician. And when I was conceived, they moved to Trinidad and Tobago. And their journey was, and their goal was to eventually get to the United States. And we eventually did that. By the time I was 3 years old, we moved to the United States, and that's where my dad did his residency. He's a pediatrician. So I'm giving you all their business too, apparently, because that's the story.
Yeah, we called him up, put him on his.
So I lived in New York for a little bit, for about 4 years, and then eventually I ended up in Florida. And that's where that's pretty much how far back my memory goes, just from living in Florida, because I was about 9 years old. And I always had like this thought in the back of my head in terms of like what I would be. It was like, you're going to become a doctor. Doesn't matter which type. You can pick the flavor, but you're going to become a physician. And honestly, I kind of resented that a lot of times because it was just a lot of pressure. And it wasn't something I necessarily saw myself doing. Because I looked at medicine and I saw like physicians when they would age, they didn't exactly look like something I would aspire to be. I'm an athlete. I was always been in shape. I was like, these doctors don't look healthy or happy to me. Why would I want to do that? But as I've become a physician and I eventually found my own niche, which is physical medicine and rehab, that kind of happened after I was in college and I tore my Achilles in 2011. I was playing flag football. And I tore my Achilles, and I thought I'd never walk again because the only story I knew about Achilles was, the Greek god and all that stuff. So I wasn't very well read on the anatomy at the time. So I was a little intimidated. So I went through the rehab and all that came from that. And along the way, I eventually ran into people that would help me get back to restoring my function and my athletic ability. And a lot of those people were in the physical therapy space and the physical medicine and rehab space. And then I was like, okay, this is something I could do. And then my sister, who's also, she's a pediatrician like my father, and she's about a year older than me. She was like, yeah, I think you'd really be good at, physical medicine and rehab. So before I started med school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And, I just had to kind of now go through the process of getting to medical school and doing that. And here I am now talking to you guys as a physiatrist.
Wow. Awesome. I mean, that's amazing. I remember when I was thinking about, what I wanted to major in, and I was a college athlete. So I ran track in college, and I just remember I was like, man, I want to do physical therapy, and I want to go in. And when she pulled up like the requirements, like, all the classes, and she was like, well, you got to take 3 years of Spanish. I was like, no, I'm good. You can take me out of that. And so I just started changing my major, like avoiding certain things. I was like, I'm going to try to be in school forever. And then here I am still took the whole long journey. So, you never know like what you find, interesting and passion. So because, medicine and stuff like that, or the medical field was something that your family obviously was like, you're gonna do something. How were you in high school, like sports, where your parents was already talking about that? Like, I know that you moved to New York, so were you already active in sports, or how was that journey?
Yeah, so my whole life I've been playing sports. So like by the time I moved to Florida and I was like 9 or 10 years old, I was running track during that time period. I used to have a record. Back then they didn't do the 4x1, they did like the 5x80 or whatever. There's 5 kids, and I used to have a record. It was another 10 years, and they broke it by the time I got to college.
5x80. I made that up.
I didn't make that up. It was a race. So it was 5 kids, and I had the record for elementary school. I was part of the record. So I used to run track, and then eventually I would play soccer all through high school. I was varsity captain, and I played travel soccer. So they always encouraged us to, play sports because it kept us away from video games and it kept us away from, I don't know, doing crazy things with people in the street.
Girls.
Focusing on your education and sport has been, big in my life. So eventually when I went to college, I still maintained, playing sports because that was kind of how I defined my personality. I was always like one of the most athletic people. So it wasn't until I like got injured and God was like, sit down and focus on something, that I started thinking about, okay, now what do I really want to do with like the rest of my life? I'm not going to be a professional athlete apparently. So I need to start thinking about, what I wanted to do. And I was really interested in business and marketing. And I would tell my father that, and he was, from his perspective, growing up where he grew up, like the people that he saw be successful financially were either lawyers, engineers, or doctors. When it came to business, like that didn't really have a meaning, right? He was like, a business of what? He was like, I don't know. I just want to run. I just want to try and
be my own boss.
Yeah. I always had that mentality, and so does my father. He runs his own clinic, so I always was like, I just don't want to work in a hospital. I don't like being told what to do. I barely like listening to my parents, so I didn't really want to, go down that route. But that's why I wanted to do business, and now I'm running a fitness organization online. So like, I still run a business anyways.
Right.
But I knew at that time that I wasn't ready or maybe mature enough to, devote that much time to becoming a physician and taking care of other people in that realm. But now I'm like really grateful, because now I have like a perspective that makes me very unique, because I'm so focused on like the health and the nutrition side, which is not taught in medical school, unfortunately, which is weird. So every time they're like, before you start any physical activity or take any supplement, please consult your physician. I'm laughing. I'm like, your physician most likely has no idea.
Right.
They're going to just Google this and say, maybe it's a good idea or maybe it's not.
Right.
And
that's because there's no money, the medicine makes the money. So they're like, if everybody start exercising, they won't need us.
Yeah, well, I mean, that should be what health is about, but that steers away a lot of people that probably could be really great physicians from medicine, because they see that it's kind of so pharmaceutical driven. And it's a battle, because that's how we're taught. We're literally like, that's our Bible is built by the pharmacy. It's not built from like a nutritional or holistic perspective. But now that I have kind of both sides of the coin, I think it helps me like see things in a way that I wouldn't have had that experience any other way.
So how do you find that balance? And I guess I always talk, because I was in education, or I've been in education for 15 years, and so I always used to struggle, and I still struggle with the system, the educational system, and then the truth, so like I would always come across young boys and girls that look like us, and I would see them do certain things. I'd be like, hey, like, no, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? They'd be like, well, so just doing it. And I'll be trying to explain to them like, no, but you can't do that. And so I always struggled with, speaking the truth, teaching the truth, but also, following the book so I can have a job. So how do you balance like your truth as far as like how would to work naturally and in that athletic side and the health side, and then also like your job, your profession? How do you balance the two?
Yeah. So, well, currently as a resident, kind of have my hands tied when it comes to like some interventions when I'm in the hospital, because like they know I want to like change the whole diet. They're not going to let me do that. But but what I do try to do is I spend a lot of time talking to patients about their nutrition and explaining them the mechanism of why a lot of their conditions exist in the first place. So like we're taught how these things happen, but we're taught in a way that it's kind of hard to really understand how your diet got you there or how your lack of exercise got you there. But because I know that stuff, I'll talk to a patient about that. So like if they have high blood pressure, I'm like, okay, well, there's many reasons why you have high blood pressure, but if you don't correct them, we're just going to continue to put you on a bunch of blood pressure medications. And so then I'll kind of dive into your diet a little bit. I'm like, what do you chronically eat? And I'm like, okay, why don't we try to maybe do that every once a week instead of every single day? Why don't we
every day?
Yeah, I don't want to, make people suffer and feel like they can't enjoy their life and the habits that they built over long periods of time. But I'm like, I want you to save your life and add more years to your life. So I'll kind of try to educate them, and that takes a little bit more time on my part, but I have the time to do it now. And when I transition into doing more of my physical medicine and rehab stuff, I typically won't be dealing with people's nutrition as often as I do right now. But I do that through Blade Fitness, my company. I talk to people about their nutrition all the time. I build them out a nutrition plan. I manage a lot of their medical issues as well. So that's kind of been my way to like impact health without having my hands tied and just dealing with only medications.
Now, I love your approach and who you are and some of the things you've laid out. because I see a reflection of myself in my profession, whereas my profession is social work. And I saw all the things that were wrong with the system, all the things, well, if you did it this way, well, but that's the tradition, that's the way we do it. So I didn't allow myself to go the traditional route as a clinical social worker, clinical therapist, or counselor, whatever it may be. But I would continue to have a connection in that space, but also start my own company, working as a social entrepreneur, whereas I could build these businesses that went towards funding some of these things that I saw the system was not allowing, or the government wasn't allowing the system to fund, so on and so forth. So in saying that, what would you say, like, what challenges do you see in like walking that thin line of not disrespecting your profession, but really going out there and doing what your heart says is the right way to, or a different way that you can be helping your clients as well?
Well, from my client's perspective, I still have to say, I don't want to disrespect your physician or whatever. So like, you make sure you consult your physician when you're doing some certain things. For instance, I had a guy that was trying to get in shape. He started working with me. His doctor put him on some blood pressure medication. And I was like, all right, cool. And then one day he goes biking, and I just changed his diet so that way he was eating a little bit healthier. He goes biking, he passes out and falls and hits his head. Right. And I told him stop taking that blood pressure medication. And for the next 3 days, check your blood pressure. And every single day it was normal. Right. So like when we have a system where you pump out these drugs and we don't see you for 3 to 6 months, we're not like figuring out what's happening with these people. If I wasn't like there kind of monitoring him, who knows what could have happened, or it could have been worse when he fell. Right. And these things always happen because we just don't have the capacity to like follow up with patients every 2 weeks, or like we don't have online portals where they can check in. Hey, how are you doing? We just gave you a medication. Well, we should probably check on you in a week instead of checking on you in 6 months. Right. These medications aren't benign. Like there's an impact. So for me, I don't want to ever disrespect people. So I let them know, hey, still talk to your physician. But at the end of the day, you have to be your biggest advocate for yourself, because it's your health, it's your body. If anything happens to you, you're going to be in a bad situation. The doctor's still going to have more patients. And these medications, a lot of them are great interventions. They help change a lot of people's lives. But I think we've become over reliant on like a quick fix for things. And I'm very hyper aware of all the some of the negative consequences of it, because I see it on a day-to-day basis. So I try to just do my best to balance that and let that person that I'm working with become as educated about their body as they need to be, so that way they can advocate for themselves in the long term.
That's it. I love that. And you hit the nail on the head. We as individuals, we are an expert on our own life and our own experiences. That doctor, that coach, that whoever professional can give you that intervention, can intervene right then and there. But as far as maintenance goes, you have to take responsibility. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Whereas so many of us, and I'm out of the South, Mississippi. So like it's so many, there's so many who
out there.
They eat good, but the good.
If it ain't fried or smothered.
Yeah.
Yes, and well, I'm all right until you go to the doctor, and then you think the doctor is going to be the one to continue to take care of you. Well, I can eat like this until this point of time, then I go back to the doctor. Wait till I get ready to go back to the doctor. I start back eating. It's no, you have to take personal responsibility and allow those professionals to do at that point in time what it is that they're there to do. So I appreciate you mentioning that, because people will look at an individual, their health, their fitness, whatever it may be, and if they mention, who did you go to? Who taught you this? Who taught you that? Just because you go to that person isn't going to make you look like that. It's going to make you feel like that. There's the in-between maintenance that you have to take responsibility for.
100%.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your journey. Like, when you started going to med school, like, were there a lot of faces like yours? And, what was that like? Because I know sometimes one thing that we talked about within our mentorship and leadership program is that a lot of our young Black males, or even females, but mostly our Black males, they end up dropping out. Like if they go to certain universities where they don't, find that common culture, or, so they start kind of falling in the gap. And so how was that journey for you? Like, were there when you went to college, how did you adapt to, like, where did you go to school at? Were there other people in there that looked like you? Because I'm sure as you start going or getting closer and closer to finishing, the numbers probably get a little bit smaller and smaller. So can you explain or talk about that journey, or like any challenges or anything that you encountered during that time?
Yeah, so like I kind of can take that back to like high school when this kind of started. Like there's always like a search for belonging whenever, just being African American in America in general. And like I started gifted class when I was in 6th grade, which was like 12 of us. There's no other black children but me. And then from there, I went into a program called the IB program whenever I was in high school. So that was about 100 students separated from all the other kids in our high school. And I guess we were labeled as smart, and we had we had a more rigorous curriculum, though supposedly to prepare us for college. There's only 6 black people out of 100, right? So, I mean, one of my best friends I met in that program because, you look around and like, all right, who can I relate to? And now he's my best friend, and I'm the best man at his wedding. So, it's what it is. And, during that experience just in high school, I noticed that from one perspective, some black kids would be like, oh, I'm different, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not different. My parents just forced me to study hard, so I study hard, so they don't get mad at me. And it almost was like they had to learn helplessness, that they couldn't accomplish what I was accomplishing educationally because they may not have had that exposure. But around me, my whole life, I've been surrounded by successful black people from the African community. So like, I've never felt that I couldn't do anything. And I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people feel like they can't do something because of their environment. So eventually, I'll go on to college at the University of Florida. It was a very multicultural place. But that's kind of where I got lost, because at that time I didn't really know if I didn't want to go do medicine. I'm taking like chemistry and organic chemistry and like pretty much tanking those classes just because I didn't want to be there. Like you really have to have the motivation to do that. But I was part of an organization called the African Student Union, and that helped me kind of stay close to a lot of people that were similar to like what I grew up with, having people that were successful. A lot of these people are now doctors or lawyers or engineers and stuff like that. So that kept me motivated to make sure I kept aspiring to something great, but it also put like a pressure on me. I was like, I got to do something amazing because all these other people are doing amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes you need that, you are the way everyone knows the quote, like you're the sum of the people or the average of the people that you hang out with. So I needed that kind of influence. And, I have an older sister that's, 1 year older than me, and she pretty much did everything right. So like she went to, the IB program. She went, became a doctor 4 years after, and she started undergrad. So I always had her like hanging over my head. I'm like, she's doing amazing. Now I got it. But it took me a little bit longer because I had to find my own path. And eventually, when I did go to medical school, it was a struggle for me because I didn't do too well in my undergrad years because I was just trying to figure it out. So I ended up going to an island school, American University of the Caribbean. And this is pretty much my last chance, I guess. But I never thought I couldn't become a doctor. I just didn't want to for most of the time. So once I got that opportunity, I'm like, all right, well, I'm here, so let's make it happen. And during that process, it was kind of a mixed bag. We had people from all over the world. It may not be like in America where you might just have predominantly like Caucasians and Asians of people. We had people from like Saudi Arabia, India, a lot of Africans straight from Africa instead of just not just African Americans. But there weren't that many African Americans there, to be honest. But we always found ways to like relate to each other and share our stories with each other and motivate each other, knowing that we're kind of trapped on this island and we all have a common goal. So at this point, we don't really see the differences, because once you get to that level, like you kind of you think a little bit different, because we're all struggling to survive.
Yeah. And then you don't have, I'm guessing, like the distractions of your average like college life where like everything is popping off. It's like everybody here is pretty much studying for the same thing. And so I know that definitely makes, a difference. And so I know how important it is to like what you call to find your own way and take your own journey. I think a lot of us are afraid to, have our own journey and take that leap and say, okay, finally I'm going to give in, or just maybe discover that, okay, maybe I can still go into this and find something that, I can change or be a part of a solution or whatever it is, and just finding your own way. I think a lot of what I've seen, with the pressure of a lot of Black males, and just, Blacks in general, is that if you do come from a successful family, like I came from a successful family as well, mom and dad and stuff like that, and you almost don't want to you don't want to disappoint them, like, oh my God, there's got to be one of them that just messes it up for the family. And so that can become a lot of pressure, because if it's not something that you really find, passion in, or whatever, so like you said, you'll start kind of having to take your own journey. What was it that made you like finally find, like, okay, was it just like a give in, like, okay, let me just do it? Or was it something that was like, wow, what was that conversation with yourself when you finally decided, okay, let me just either do it or do something else? Like, what was that conversation with yourself?
Before you answer that, I kind of want to make sure in your answer, like, you speak to those who may be in a similar situation. Maybe they don't have themselves on the right track. So letting them know, okay, this is how you could potentially get back on the track. Because my story was similar, but go ahead with that answer.
Okay, so I'll try to answer that with two different perspectives. So the first thing was, like, I grew up I was born in Trinidad. My parents are from Nigeria. I never actually lived there before. And right before I started medical school, a little bit before, I spent 3 weeks in Nigeria. And that was for the first time I got a chance to see, like, the lifestyle that my parents used to live, and like contrast it with the lifestyle that I live right now. Right. And then a lot of things started to click in my head as to why they have the mindset that they do. Right. I saw my dad used to live in a house with 6 other brothers that's smaller than my bedroom in my house in Florida. So I saw, like, where my mom used to live, and she would tell me, because I went with my mom and my little sister. So she would tell me stories about, here's where your dad used to sell his pastries. My dad doesn't even like pastries. I didn't know he used to sell.
Like, what?
So, like, I saw the struggle and like their origin story. And then, like, so part of me was like, okay, I will do some of the things that they want me to do to honor them and the sacrifice that they made. But I have to make sure that I do it in a way that do it my way. Right. So I'm going to have to find a profession that I like to do. And luckily at that time, I knew a little bit about physical medicine. I was like, I know medical school is kind of going to suck. Some parts of it just suck. It is what it is, right? And same thing with residency. But I knew that it was going to be worthwhile as long as I kept my mind on straight, and I still wanted to accomplish the goals that I had. It was like, I still want to become a business person. I'll still do all those things. Still want to influence people with nutrition. I'll do that. So I found a compromise, because a lot of times, like, when you're young and you have all this pressure from people, you're like, oh, I got to do this thing, or my parents are not going to accept me, or my friends are not going to accept me. And yeah, sometimes you want to make them proud, but at the end of the day, you can't try to live someone else's dream. You have to live your own as well. So if you want to factor in their opinion, then factor it in, but try to do it your way, and just, like, slow down and try to let all the pressure go away. Go meditate, go to the beach, walk on the water, and just think about, how do you want to craft the life that you're going to ultimately have to live. And luckily for me, I figured it out. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's a great answer. Especially, going back to the roots, going back to, and the fact that you had never been there before. I remember whenever I went into college, my dad was like, be an accountant, because that was pretty much the only person who was making big money that he was around on a regular basis whenever he was working. And I was a smart kid coming through school. I mean, it wasn't in my own Ivy League high school, but I was one of those kids that really excelled. But I got into college and I had those difficulties. I was going in the direction that my dad wanted me to go in, and I was just lost. Like, plus I was a student athlete all the way up until then, and now I'm just a student. I didn't know what that meant. So that transition was difficult for me. And I love the fact that you had to go back to your roots. Sometimes I would just have to go back home and see how my dad, where he worked, where he used to come up from, and the things that he had to experience. And he just wanted what was best for me. But at the same time, as you mentioned, you have to find your own way in what is best for you. So I appreciate you mentioning that, because so many can get stuck in that whole decision-making process. I think it's important to hear from someone like yourself who made it to where you currently are, which we'll go into here shortly. But seeing what the beginnings were and the obstacles along the way, but continue to figure out, what, this is going to be my life. Let me be respectful of my parents, but at the same time, carve out my own niche to where I have that sense of fulfillment alongside with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the biggest thing. You have to live that life. And, I have other siblings. I have 4 other siblings. And that pressure is like, we all had that pressure. And I have those talks with them. I'm like, yeah, I know your parents they have this perspective for a reason, right? You don't necessarily have to only do that, but, honor that perspective and do the things that are going to make you ultimately happy and sustain yourself, because you still have to deal with this. Because if that pressure becomes too much, it can mess with your mental health. It can lead to depression or like a feeling of lack of fulfillment. And, I never wanted that. But there were moments when I was in college where I kind of had that sense. And, those were like some of the toughest moments of my life. But I'm glad I went through those, because it made me resilient, and it allowed me to kind of navigate, the waters of life a little bit better over time.
I love it.
Yeah. So, when you graduated and you went into, starting your whole actual profession, right now, how was that journey for you? Like, finding that balance, because now it's like, whew, finally, damn, I finally got out of school. I can finally start making, money, and I can, I'm done with these schoolwork, because I know how I didn't even want to walk the stage when I graduated, but my friends were like, that is so selfish that you're the first doctor in your family. You're not even going to go to graduation. But I was just so over it. I was just like, just send my shit in the mail. I am just tired of looking at people in school. And so I was just like, But so how was that transition for you when you decided, okay, so you graduated, now it's like, now what was that like for you?
It was a very unique time, because I graduated and the pandemic happened. So, right when I graduated, I didn't have a graduation. Well, I didn't have an actual physical graduation. Like, I was in my big screen TV, like watching my name being put on the screen, all dressed up. And, I took pictures around my house with my parents and a couple of my siblings and stuff. So I didn't really have that opportunity. But like then, I didn't travel between the times of me graduating to beaches, because I couldn't, so it was just a very unique time. I was like, well, this kind of sucks. I've been waiting my whole career. I had like 6 months off. I'm like, I'm going to Aruba, Barbados, everywhere. I didn't go anywhere. So I took that time to really dedicate myself to learning more about the online marketing and fitness and like nutrition stuff, so that way I could build my organization. And I hired a business coach and like a therapist and all these people to like a team to kind of get better at the things that I knew I was weak at, because I'm like, well, this is my time to do this, because I have nothing else to do. And, it benefited me now, because like if I was to start what I have now, it'll just be really difficult. And that allowed me to go into residency and still be able to maintain, kind of I can't even call it work-life balance, because it's like work balance. It just depends on the work. But it's allowed me to try to balance that a little bit better. And because this is something I want to do for the rest of my life, is I know that my main medical occupation doesn't have much to do with people's nutrition. It's just like, you hurt your knee, your elbow, your joints, I got you. That's what I'm supposed to fix. But I still want to make sure I can influence people from a nutritional standpoint, because it plays so much of a role in everything that we do. Yeah, so that's kind of what I did during that time period.
Yeah, I was thinking about when you talk about ACL, like, so I did 4 years running track in college, never got hurt. And then I went to go play in a faculty versus students basketball game, and what they call went live and tore my ACL. I was like, are you serious? But, that's what happens when you talk a lot of trash. I was talking to kids telling me it sucks and, all this other stuff. But anyway, so yeah, I might need the fly thing, and you can take a look at my knee, because I'm like, Even the doctor, I ended up meeting a really good doctor out here, and he was just like, it's not worth cutting on it right now because I guess my quads were like a lot stronger than the average. And he was just like, you really, you're really doing good. I was like, well, then don't worry about it. Then let me sign this paper. Let me go home. Because I was like, I'm scared to go on the table. But
that's a common injury, especially like we get injured because we're so athletic, and then you stop playing sport for a while, and then you think your brain forgot that part.
Right. You think
Right.
like, yeah, I still got it, feel good, but no.
Yeah, but when it comes to your quads, just a little side note. So most people are very quad dominant, and as an athlete, you're super quad dominant. So like the best thing to protect your knee would be to like really work on your hamstrings a lot. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to even you out. So that's a side note in case you were looking for some therapy.
Yeah, invoice, because I
you're on the pot now.
He sent me an invoice talking about the consulting up on me. So how do you, okay, so now you still have your business that you're doing. Give us a little insight on what your business is about. And then also when you're not doing the business and you're not working out or you're not working, what are you doing during that time? What is your
everything I'm doing? I'm supposed to be doing other things.
You can't work out in your sleep. I mean, you can't work out all the time.
So basically, I'll start off with the business part. So what my organization is, it's called Blade Fitness, and essentially what it is I create nutrition plans and fitness routines for people. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I've competed in bodybuilding. I've recorded like almost all the exercises I've ever done, and I've compiled them into a mobile app that I've made. So that way, whenever I build out plans for people, they can like watch an instructional video. And then from there, they have 24/7 access to me. It's sometimes a little too much access, but they can message me whenever.
24/7?
I mean, they just have a direct line to me versus the people in my message requests on Instagram. So it's a lot. So, they have access to me. If they have any lab work, I help them interpret it. I send them all my nutrition videos. Like I have longer form stuff than what I post on Instagram and TikTok on my YouTube channel. And those are essentially made for my clients because I know most people don't have that type of attention span on Instagram. So I send that to my clients to give them more details about like whatever condition they're dealing with or like nutrition and stuff. So that's pretty much what I do is nutrition, coaching, and accountability. And then aside from what I do when I'm not working out or being a doctor and all the other stuff, I just like going to the beach and hanging out with my friends. Like I feel real peaceful by the water. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was born on an island, but I really love to go to the beach. I hate the cold, so I'll never live up there permanently. Yeah. So that's pretty much what I do. I make music. Yeah. So I do a lot of that as well.
So you making music about eating right, or is it like about something?
I mean, I can't even lie. My last song was about like it starts off someone saying, "I'm trying to get in shape. What you tried? I tried everything." Then I say, "No, you're not committed. You're not committed like a wedding ring. Why are you trying to treat this game of fitness like a summer fling? It's time to work. It's time to get it in."
Okay.
So it's kind of like a fitness song.
And that I remember when I first moved here to Houston, one of my partners, one of my friends that now like my best friend, he was like, you ever thought about doing a competition? I was like, no, I'm not trying to look like a man. I'm not trying to be all cool.
You don't got testosterone like that.
But see, it's like when you don't know, a lot about it, that's what you think. You think like, oh, I'm not trying to go up there and look like that. And so he took me to his show. I saw this girl. She used to run track, and her body was like sick, right? I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna do this competition. So I started like training, and it was just crazy because I was used to, being in regular shape is different than being in competition shape, and so I was still prepping for I think I was about 12 weeks out. So I was, prepping for it and stuff like that. And, but I was still, it was during the summertime. So in Houston, the sun is good. I'm getting cute, and I'm like, got people sending me wine and everything else from all across the bar. So I was just, I was enjoying my life. I was still training. And my best friend, he was like, oh, you're trying to go on stage and really lose, right? Like, that's what you're trying to do. So anyways, I had to get off the scene to stay focused on this whole competition. But to see my body like at 3% or 5%, it was just amazing of just that transformation of just your mind and just doing things that you never thought you could do. Because it's like you said, it's different. Like being in competition and being in, you know, a regular fitness, and then you got your, you know, you can look regular fine, fit fine, you know, you got your different levels to fineness. And so you can't get on stage with the fit fine with the competition fine. Like this is different. And so people were like, well, don't worry about it, just go up there. And so anyway, I started training. I was like, look, if I do anything, I'm gonna do it right, and I'm trying to win. And so end up getting on stage, and they kept calling my number, and I kept getting up to the front. I was like, I think I'm about to win this shit. I was so excited, and I ended up getting second in novice and second in overall. I did figure, and fell in love with it. But then I couldn't find that balance of people trying to sponsor me and still trying to enjoy myself. So I'm gonna do another one when I turn 40, but I ain't gonna make it a full-time thing. But just that whole journey of competition is a whole nother ball game mentally. What was that transition for you? Well, I mean, I guess you would probably that wasn't that hard. You like eating out of containers, right?
No, I hate tracking stuff, but I track it just so I show the people online that this is how you're supposed to track it, because I track things for so long. Like I'm pretty much a robot when it comes to nutrition. I can look at anything and I can ballpark guess how many calories or protein or carbs in it, but I hate tracking. But the reason why I decided to compete was after I tore my Achilles, which I told you, but I tore my patellar tendon a couple years later. It was in an intramural basketball game, first play of the game, steal the ball, run down the court. Some guy was coming. I'm like, I'm about to dunk on this guy. I can't dunk, but I thought that in my head. I plant, and then my knee blows out, and my patella, which is your kneecap, was pretty much where my left glute is. So it was pretty much by my butt cheek. It went all the way up my body. And then I had to like push it slowly down my leg and put it back in the socket, and then stand up and kind of shimmy off the court. So I did that. And I dealt with a lot of pain from that for years. And I was like, maybe I'm not training hard enough. So I was like, let me compete in bodybuilding. Maybe this will motivate me to be consistent. Because I'm like, if I have to get on stage in a mankini, clearly my legs have to look great. So maybe they'll feel great too.
And we definitely don't want your knee up by your ass either. So that's really fixed.
Don't worry, that was surgically repaired. It was put back down. But it was still painful. So my thought process, for whatever reason, was like, okay, maybe I just need to train harder. I ended up, competing in my first show after seeing a friend of mine that was also a physician compete. Her name is Dr. Sunny Andrews online, and she competed. I'm like, I can do this. I saw a bunch of guys having fun. I'm like, this just looks fun, right? So she did it, and then like maybe 8 months later, I competed, and the whole knee thing didn't work. I just was in great shape, but my knee hurt more than ever. So I was like, I need to find a better way to handle that. So that's kind of what my process was. I just saw other people doing it, and I was like, you know what? This is something I can see myself doing. But the thing that I noticed while I was doing is I learned so much more about my body, right? I learned how everything affects my body, and it made me a better coach. I don't coach a lot of people that want to compete, but like, because I went through that experience, I really know how like your macros really affect your body. I was weighing myself every single day for months, right? I know how it affects your energy. I know how different foods will affect your hunger. Like everyone's like, oh, I'm hungry all the time. Like, well, if you modify the things that you eat, your hunger levels will dissipate. And fun fact, hunger is not going to kill you, right? Right. So I try to educate my clients based on some of the experiences I have with my body. Like I've had a continuous glucose monitor on my body. I'm not diabetic. I do that so that way I can check my blood sugar and like educate people. I'm like, okay, this is what happens when you get bad sleep. Your blood sugar is elevated in the morning. This is what happens when you decide you want to binge drink on the weekend. Your blood sugar is going to tank at first, and then it's going to skyrocket because your body's not going to process anything but alcohol. Right. So I'm constantly using my body as a test subject so that way I can be a better teacher, because like otherwise, where are these people going to get this information from? Right. Wow. So that's kind of the beginning of the process, was like me bodybuilding, but it's not like something I'll do every year. I'll probably compete again. Just because I got last place twice.
Yeah, you don't have to come back. You got to get back on there. Way too much. You should be like thin, lean like lunch meat, you know, as much as you weigh yourself in. And I mean,
Yeah, it's different. There's, like you said, there's different levels of fitness. Like everyone that normally sees me, that I stand out, and people are like, "Oh man, you should compete. You should compete." I'm like, you do not understand how lean these people get.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think, you know, you speaking on that.
which I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just that what you mentioned as far as you got last place twice. A lot of people, you throw it into, I'm done with this, man. I ain't about to do some more. But you continue to love your body. You continue to work forward. You know what? I'm gonna do it again. I think that's something people need to hear. Like, don't worry about what that, you know, that measurement or that award or lack of award said. You just keep doing what make you happy. Just keep going after it. Keep going after it.
Yeah, and we all, and like if you ever go to those competitions, like those are the most motivational people ever, because they're all struggling with something. Some of them used to be like 300 pounds and they lost a bunch of weight. Some of them used to struggle with addiction. But at the end of the day, when you make it to the stage and you get on stage, we're all winners, right? Because we're all in the best shape of
You
our
made
life,
it.
right?
Yeah,
So it doesn't matter what the award is. Yes, some people might try to take it to the top notch level, but like at the end of the day, like you had the discipline to follow through with a plan for a long time, restrict yourself. And now you can take that discipline that you had from that and use it in other aspects of your life.
yeah.
Man, you got me over here wanting to go jump on my pull-up bar, man.
It's good, man.
Yeah, but
Yes,
it's
indeed.
learn, like you said, about yourself during that journey. You know, things that you thought you needed and wanted, you know, you no longer have a desire for. And then you start really paying attention, like you said, to like how your body reacts when it doesn't have enough sleep and how your body reacts. And so it was, I got spoiled because I ended up getting like down to maybe, I think I was about 3.5 4% body fat, and I did that like in 5 weeks, like 4 weeks, because the other weeks I was, like I said, I was hanging out still a little bit,
How
drinking.
did you measure your body fat? Because that is almost unhealthily.
Well, the thing about it, when I first, I think when I first started, when I first got on, I must have been 100 and, oh my God, I don't know, like 125. And I think when I got to the state, no, I was like 135. And I think when I got to the stage, I ended up being like 112, maybe.
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'4".
Okay. And did you use like calipers, or did you
Yeah,
do
so we
biometric?
had like a whole team that I mean, I basically just kind of joined in the team. But they had someone that checked everything, like someone who did massages, that take the, you know, push the water out. And it was just a whole process. I always had to go see somebody for something. I was just like, do I really want to do this? Plus it's expensive for women to compete, you know, the suits, $1,000, the shoes is $500, and you got to get tan and the hair and the wax and all this stuff. It was just like, okay, this is an expensive hobby. And so I was like, after spending $2,000, I need to come home with something. Like I need to win something, because I done spent all my little change on this competition. And so I needed something to come home and be like, well, at least it was worth, you know, this. But just so much of what I enjoyed most about the process was just what I learned about myself, like what I was capable of doing, and how far I was able to push my body to that limit. So tell us now, like, what do you have coming up, or what are you doing that you feel, you know, like, do you have any events? Do you have any live something coming up? Do anything that you want to share with the guests as far as how they can find you, and anything that you have that's, you know?
All right. So if they want to find me, the best place to find me is probably on Instagram at Dr. Blade MD, DOCTA Blade MD. And I do have a challenge that I have coming up that I'm working on. It's going to be called the 25 Strong Challenge, which is going to be 25 days where you're going to try to build positive habits. And that'll slowly be released on my page eventually. But I wanted to get a lot of people involved because I realized challenges are better than me. I can help more people with challenges because everyone can kind of motivate each other instead of me just trying to motivate them, because they can all relate to each other. And that's kind of how I got started in general with my fitness company. It was like I just worked on my friends and also some of my colleagues. And I had one of my clients who's a dentist. He lost like 70 pounds in less than a year. And before he did all this, when he was at his heaviest, I told him like, yo, man, I'm not relatable. people look at me and like, I can't get like that. Like every time someone wants advice from me, they're like, "Hell, I don't want to get too muscular or bulky." And I'm like, trust me, you won't. All right. It takes a long time. So I had someone that, was able to significantly drop his body fat down and just change his life, find his future wife and everything. And he was a dentist. And I told him before he got started, I'm like, hey man, I'm not relatable, but you're relatable. Like if you dedicate your time to like really take care of yourself and change your life around and your health, because he was having these weird health issues, you can inspire a lot of people. And, once we were able to get that to happen, like he inspired a bunch of people. So like I realized that doing groups and things like that, are a great way for me to like help people. So I'm trying to get another group running soon. And you follow me on the Instagram, you'll find out about it.
So are you only taking serious clients? Because I know people probably hit you up like, I'm trying to get in shape, but they're really not.
Yeah. So I only take on serious clients, obviously, because my time is limited. So I used to have my calendar open where anyone could book, and I would have like 20 or 30 appointments a week. And
say and then they'll say like, you're like,
So I had all these barriers to try to get people that weren't serious, because half of them wouldn't even show up. And then when I talk to them, like, oh, I don't have any money. And I understand, like, you don't have money. I feel bad for you, but these things cost money, right? So now I have, in order to book on my calendar, it's just $50 to like book your time slot. And ever since, no one's like booked an appointment and didn't show up because they know they paid for it.
Yeah, that makes a difference, because I know when I started pushing my fitness stuff, I was getting all kind of, people signing up and they weren't serious and stuff like that. And unfortunately, people don't become as serious until they have to pay for it. When you are free and you are there, they can't have access to you 24/7. They just talking at this point. But a lot of people really don't want to make that lifestyle change. They just want something quick. I have a wedding coming up. I want to get fine. I have this coming up. I want to, what can you make me look like in 25 days? And what can you, it's like, the 25 days is to start you out, but you need to eventually like start learning how to create, make this a lifestyle change versus just trying to, be in the seasons of summertime coming up. Now you want to do this, springtime coming up. Now you want to do that. But we have to get out of that habit of only getting ready for something. So, I definitely appreciate you sharing that knowledge and just the things that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, if you're preparing for, like I had a client, she's like, hey, I'm trying to get right for my birthday. I'm like, all right, your birthday is like 5 weeks away. Think about your next birthday. Think about your next birthday.
next year's birthday.
Yeah, like, you have to think about that. Don't stop getting ready for the beach every year. Just be ready, right? Because I know for myself, like if I don't look beach ready all year, that means I let my health go. If I looked at my blood work, it's probably worse. Like I'm being very terrible to myself. So like everyone doesn't have to be shredded and have abs all the time, but like honor your body, because once this thing stops working, what do you have, right? I've been in a wheelchair, I've been bedridden. I know what happens when I got injured, like, and I hated that, So like I don't take any day for granted, and I try to do the best to honor my body. And I just do it through, lifting some iron every once in a while and eating a little bit healthy. It's just finding a balance. But like a lot of people, unfortunately, their balance was built by like their parents giving them Cheerios and candy. And they think like just because it's healthy on the box, it's healthy. And they don't understand what real nutrition is. But if it didn't have eyes or no one could kill it, you probably shouldn't be eating it every single day for every single meal.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And I used to tell my clients too, I'm like, I don't have to put you on a strict diet, but it's about finding like modifying, modification. You can't eat bad all the time. If you want to treat yourself to something every once in a while, it's something different, but having that balance of, you can't, like for me, I love to eat. I love to live my life. I love to do things. So I know I have to be in the weight room. I have to work out. I have to do those things. You can't have a bad habit and not exercise. You need to pick one or the other, but it's like, people don't want to find that balance, especially in our community. When you look at the lack of resources, when you go to certain neighborhoods, you don't find the Whole Foods and the Specs and the Sprouts and all those other places. And so that it is a lack of resources, but it is also a lack of knowledge, because we have so much access now to looking things up. But again, if it's something that's not taught to you, or something that is, that you constantly hear about around, people around you, then you don't really, you're kind of ignorant to what healthy looks like, because people think, oh, it's not healthy, food is not good, or I'm gonna still be hungry, or all these other things, the excuses that we make up to not do good, or not do better. I think that it's just a lack of resources and a lack of knowledge, in our community when it comes to health.
That's why we got to give out the knowledge. So that's,
Yeah.
if no one's giving out the knowledge to people that look, because it's very important for people to feel like they can identify themselves and somebody else, so like if they don't see someone that looks like them talking about nutrition, then they're not gonna trust it, because Black people traditionally just don't trust a lot of things for a good reason, right? So they need people like us that are going to go out there and just educate them on things that they might not have had access to when they're growing up.
Yeah, and just as we brought you to the people today, and you're speaking on this right here, and this is an example of what you can be in the fitness space. This is an example of what you can be as a Black man growing up. Like, you can go through really wanting to be in the athletic space, really wanting to be in the business space, but still become a physician and still do the things that you truly desire to do. It's all about just really making that decision and being committed to it. And it's one of those misnomers. What is it? Knowledge is power. Like, so many of us, we know what to do. We know what we're not supposed to eat. We know that we need to get a certain amount of physical activity a day. But what power are we exemplifying if we're not doing what we know? So I just want to thank you for doing everything that you do to be that example in the medical space, in the healthy living space, in the physical fitness space. So I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I'm check out your IG. Dang, man, like, it's motivation. Like, it inspires me to get up off my butt and not go to the restaurant to get dinner, but let me get some of these mixed vegetables, some of this broccoli. Let me whip me up something instead of going to get something quick and easy. So, I appreciate everything that you do. You definitely are an example for the Black community, and that's why we do this show. I'm so thankful that you were able to get a hold of me.
Hey, man, I'm thankful for the opportunity. This has been fun. It's my most fun interview so far.
Well, thank you.
Yes. But we'll definitely be continuing to push everything you got going on. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for the 25 Strong Challenge. Sharing content that you're sharing on Instagram. Just continue to push out, paying it forward.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I'll do the same for y'all.
Sure.
Keep it up. More of this.
For just being you and sharing your journey with us. I truly appreciate you accepting the invite and reaching right back and being open to being on the show. So I truly, and we truly appreciate you doing that, and taking the time and just being vulnerable, because we know there's no growth if we can't be vulnerable. So people are going to grow from your story. And so that's all we try to do, is impact one person at a time, whether it's young or old. So I just thank you for being a part of that journey with us.
Okay, my pleasure. I loved it.
For sure. All right, so we're going to put you backstage real quick as we close out. Then we'll come back to you and just say some final words before we let you go for the evening.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
So we had Dr. Blade in the building.
Dr. Blade.
He just got all kind of stuff going on, but it's just amazing to hear his journey of how, he had to go back to his roots to really understand what the struggle was for his family, for his parents. Because a lot of times, our youth, especially now, they just see what their parents have now. Parents have a nice car, and parents are doing this, parents doing that. But you don't know what your parents, and a lot of parents aren't sharing those stories with their kids of, this is why we are hard on you, or this is why. Sometimes you got to take them back and let them see that, what you're seeing right now hasn't always been the journey. So I really appreciate him sharing that journey with us about that.
Exactly. A lot of us can relate to that, and I feel we need to use that as an example. Those of us that have children, use that as an example. And it just gave me an idea of what I want to do with my kids. Look, y'all think y'all got it bad here? Let me take y'all back home. Let me tell y'all, this is where So
yeah,
definitely.
Our youth is definitely spoiled. So I think it's so important. But I just truly appreciate him sharing his knowledge and him still finding his way, and still being true to his truth, which is the health and fitness, but also he also has his gift in medicine and everything else that he's doing. So he is just definitely a blessing in the Black community. And so please make sure you are sharing this video, get the knowledge out for people. You never know who is going to motivate, who is going to inspire. So please make sure you share it on your Facebook. It is on YouTube Live as well. So make sure that you share it wherever you need to share it, share the information. We're here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Time. So please make sure we are just excited about some projects we got coming up. We ain't gonna tell all y'all everything right now, but just know there are some things coming up, and we need you to make sure that you are supporting us. You could also find out more about our programs on B. Can you put it up for us? So we are HSBA. And that's where you can find out what we're doing within our organization to help our youth. So again, you can go to the website, wearehsba.com, and you will find out again what we're doing with our mentorship and leadership program and how you can help contribute to it and just be a part of supporting the cause. And so again, thank you for being a part of the Black Podcast. We love you. We'll be here again Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Time. Please be safe. If you're in Texas, still wear your mask and just make sure that you are taking care of your health, because we know health is your immune system is not strong enough to fight off whatever virus and stuff is out there, then you will be another number. So please make sure that you are taking care of your body. This is crucial and is serious during this time. So we love you, the Black Podcast, and we are out.
We're out.